Today we have a founder and a CEO, a chief evangelist officer of a upstart company that is going live next week. I'm excited to invite Sharif here to talk a little bit about the journey of building a product over the past 6 years, growing it into something that's about to go live, and everything that him and his partners are anticipating. Sharif, how you doing today, buddy?
I am doing great, Matt. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year. Happy Tuesday.
Absolutely. For all of you guys that are watching, we just turned into 2026. I always love the turn of a new year. I'm a very goal-driven person, and I love the idea of being able to turn the page on a year and start in a new page. And now you've got an even more exciting version of why to turn the page to this year is because you're finally going live with a project it sounds like you and your partners have been working on for a while. Before we get too deep into that project, and I know that most of your goals likely are going to be tied to the success of that launch, but as you turn the corner into a new year, what do you generally focus on going into a new year? Are you like one of those guys that's like, new year, new me, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life this year, or this, that, and I mean, like, how do you attack a new year?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's really the first thing is reflection, right? What was accomplished in the previous year? Did I set out to do what it is I wanted to do? Did my company set out to do what it wanted to do? If not, then that means then come this new year, there's some adjustments that need to be made. Why didn't I make, said goals? Was there anything that prevented me from it? And, sort of let's attack it from that angle. So I'm not necessarily a rah, 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 new, but it's really more reflective. And how did last year then, from what we learned the previous year, how did we then transition into the new year?
Yeah, it's something I've really learned, and I've focused a lot on goals over the past year. One of the things that was introduced to me, I think was around the end of 2023, which was a daily concept called 4Gs. It's something that I've done, and now it's almost a requirement I have of people that I'm developing in my business. And that requires every day my team members to come in and they go over 10 things they're grateful for, their overall goals, have gratitude for something, and have grace for something. I missed one there. One is the growth aspect. So instead I said gratitude kind of twice. I said 10 things are grateful for, goals, something of grace, and then something that is around growth, as in digesting, reading a book, digesting something new, making them a better person today than they were yesterday. And man, when I started doing that, learning how to set proper goals and some things that I think a lot of people miss around goals was something I really took from it. Now, from a goals perspective, Sharif, how do you set a goal? Is there a thought process you have on setting a goal, or is it just like, I want to do this, I'm saying it, I'm imagining it, or is there an actual process you follow around that?
Yeah, I'm a pretty task-oriented person, so it's always about, well, what needs to get done this hour, this day, this week, this month, this year, right? And let's sort of work backwards to see what steps it is we need to take in order to achieve said goal, is sort of how I look at things, right?
Yeah, one of the things I added to the way I set goals, and I have this for my team as well, which is I think there are action goals and result goals. I think too often people focus on the result goal of the outcome, not the action that gets you to the outcome. I think also people aren't setting enough measurable goals. Like, I want my business to be more successful, but there's no analytical metric that can be reviewed at that deadline to gauge the success. I equate it to, I want to lose weight in 2026 versus I want to lose 20 pounds in 2026 versus I want to do X, Y, and Z action every day, that when I do X, Y, and Z action every week, I will lose 20 pounds. I tend to focus on the action setting that gets you to the result, understanding what your result is and what you want it to be, making sure it's measurable is good, but then go to the daily actions that can again get you there. I think the other part to goal setting is writing it down, and so that when you are at the end of 2025, you have a thing to go back to to reflect on what did I say I wanted to do in 2025 and what of it did I do. Now you are going into a new era where you guys are finally going live with your product and your company. It's called CineBlock Films. First off, tell us a little bit about it, and then tell us everything that has gone into getting you prepared for this upcoming day in the next week or two.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, CineBlock Films is an equity crowdfunding platform that specializes in entertainment IP, right? So, that essentially means is we have created a platform that allows for fractionalized investment into film and television products, right? If that's just an easy one sentence blurb for people to sort of digest. Historically, investment in film and television projects has been done by the uber wealthy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Someone has a great idea and they say, man, I need $1 million to make this. Let me go ask this person for $500,000, right? They get their pitch decks together and then they get on their hands and knees and beg someone who's extraordinarily wealthy, who has a history of investing in films. And 9 times out of 10, they don't end up getting that investment.
Mm.
So, what we decided to do was to say, okay, well, one of the ways to make this easier to help filmmakers get financing is what if we just reduce the cost of it, essentially fractionalize it in the same fashion that mutual funds are done. So instead of asking one person for $500,000, you can ask a couple thousand people for a couple $100, right? And then at the same time, we are creating a new asset class for the everyday investor, right? So it's helping filmmakers and helping everyday people, right? And so our platform is almost like a matchmaker, if you would, right? But centered on entertainment IP. And when I say entertainment, I mean film, television, gaming, VR, etc. But the meat and potatoes of it are film and television.
So why would the average Joe invest in a film? I mean, I, I I'm sure there's some profitability in films, but I would guess the majority of films are not incredibly profitable. But tell me I'm wrong, Sharif.
Yeah. No, you're correct. Most films are not profitable, and that's for a number of reasons outside of just the filmmaker and the investor. It has to do a lot with the Hollywood structure, the way it's been made. But let's take a
Yep.
step back, right? Because
Yep.
I get asked this question, like, how do we know, like, are people actually doing this, et cetera, et cetera? The answer is already yes. If
Sure.
we take a look and looked at crowdfunding platforms like a Kickstarter, an Indiegogo, a Seed and Spark, millions of dollars are already put towards people helping to get projects made that they believe in, right? We're only taking something that's existing and say, well, let's spin it a little bit so that's a little bit more beneficial for all parties. So instead of just asking people for donations, which is what many of people do, especially film creators and content creators, let's give the people who would donate these to these campaigns the opportunity to invest in them instead,
Mm,
right? So
mm.
that you're actually coming away with some level of equity, right? So that you're getting more than just a T-shirt or a coffee mug, which is what people are accustomed to with, say, like a Kickstarter. And it's no knock on a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo or a Seed and Spark, but we're a platform that's saying this is already happening. People are already giving money to films. Let's just give them something that they can walk away with, right? Yeah. And on top of that, I think most people love culture. Culture is really only about 6 or 7 things, right? If you think
Sure.
it's literally movies, television, fashion,
Music,
sports, language,
music.
music, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So
Yeah.
what we're doing is giving people the opportunity to invest in culture. Most people have never had that opportunity before, right? It's never been presented to them to say, would you have an opportunity to invest in the very thing it is that you spend so much time doing, right? Because at the end of the day, so many people still watch film and television, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I can imagine from the filmmaker perspective, this and likely could be a significantly more attractive proposition than the alternative where you have one larger major investor and that I would imagine probably has a large controlling measure of what happens within that film, right? I mean, I would imagine
Absolutely.
that's probably one of the reasons why some of these films aren't very successful. I mean, first off, there's no new ideas being brought to the marketplace in the film side. Secondarily, like everything is like politically correct. I mean, like If you think of all of the comedies that happened in the early 2000s and the 90s, and then the volume of comedies today, nobody's funding a comedy based off the scared of the audience being offended. And I think that we're past that in a society, but I would tell you that the movie industry is not aligned with that culture yet. I mean, do you see the same thing?
Absolutely. The reality is no one's happy right now. Not filmmakers, not studios, not fans, etc. There's a reason there's been strikes so recently, and there's a possibility of one coming up. Right. I think streaming fundamentally changed how we consume movies, and fundamentally changed then the business of movie making. Right. And so studios are less willing to take a shot on that film that costs between 1 million and roughly $10 million. Right. You don't really see studios going to back those anymore. It's all about these big budget Marvel, and I'm a huge fan of Marvel and comic books, but that's literally become the formula that so many studios have gone to. And just like you said, fans are tired of this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
Give
mean,
us
there's
what
no
we want.
new classics. It's
Give it
just
right.
all remakes.
Exactly. Give us something new and original. I say this all the time. I'm in my mid 40s. When I was 13, 14 years old in 1994, 1995, on the same day, I could have gone to see Forrest Gump, Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, Seven, films that are considered classics all at one time. And now that's not really the case with the way movies are being made and then marketed to the general public. So something has to change.
You know, I still love, I'm 42. I still love the nostalgia of going to a movie theater and watching a movie. And I'm sure most people my age and older, and I'm not sure about the younger crowd. I don't know if they're like have the same nostalgia around it because I don't think there's been the same pull to it in the younger crowd. But what I do see is I see a lot of amazing, innovative creation on the television side, but not on the movie side. What is your assessment on why all of the innovations happening there? And then second follow up to that is why are theaters not investing into series type experiences in theaters to where like what if you go buy a Game of Thrones type of show that then you can first put in the theaters, it, premiere it there nationwide like a movie where there's 4 to 5 different shows and then release it on a Netflix post or some sort of like Paramount Plus distribution place. Why is that not happening?
Yeah, great questions. Well, for starters, I think COVID facilitated what was already happening. Right? It's sped up, expedited, if you would. What was already happening was this reluctance to go out to theaters, in large part because of cost. Right? Think of what it takes for a family of 3 or 4 to go to a movie theater. Right? It's not cheap anymore. Secondly, the experience itself hasn't really been updated. Right? It was essentially the same in the from the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. You go, you wait in line, you go to the movie, and then that's it. And then after 2 hours, it's sort of over, right? And so I think that has helped to create an environment where people are less willing to go outside and go to a theater because at the end of the day, the question really becomes, is it worth the risk of me spending this money for me to go outside, get in my car or get on the train, go out, go somewhere to a theater, possibly eat dinner beforehand, et cetera, to go see a movie that might be terrible or the 15th version of a movie that's already been
Yeah.
shown? Is the risk worth the reward? And for most people in the modern era, the answer has been categorically no, it's not. That's why we're going to stay home, right? And so we're of the belief that that can fundamentally change, right? You have to be able to incentivize people to go. Now, let's get back to the CineBlock model. So say a filmmaker, right, raises funds for a movie. They come to our platform, they raise $4 or $5 million to get their movie made. It gets made, right? It's now picked up for distribution. It's now in a theater. If Matt, let's say you invested in that movie, is it more likely then that you then go and tell your friends and family, like, hey, I invested in this movie. It's coming out on such and
Mm,
such date. You should go check it out. I'm going to go see it on this
yeah.
particular day. How awesome is it for me to say, I helped create this film that's on the big screen? So, what we can do here is empower filmmakers and incentivize fans to now become investors and go see the products it is that they want to see, right? This is one of the ways I can envision
Yeah.
theaters coming back to life is if people say, wait, I'm a part of this marketing machine too. I own a piece of this. Let's go see it.
Yeah. And it's funny that your perspective that the reason why we're not seeing the theaters as busy as they were is that they haven't updated the experience. And to that point, that is not incorrect for the most part. I mean, I go to a theater, they do discount Tuesdays. So tonight is the chance I'm going to go see a movie with my wife. And they've got the dine-in set up,
Yeah.
super nice recliners. It's spaced out. It's a comfortable environment, heated seats. I mean, everything you can imagine is as up to date technologically as you could be. But why I don't go, I would go every week if there was a movie worth watching. I don't go because I look at the movies and they're dog shit. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But then I see how good the TV stuff is. So let me ask you, so maybe you don't know. Why are the good TV shows why are innovation happening with new TV being created, but not on the movie side? Is it the investment side? Is it the networks have more options, so more people are just going there because there's more distribution places? Why is TV being made at an all-time great, I believe, versus, the movies at an all-time low?
Because just like you said, networks were willing to take risks. The reason why a Madman got made was because AMC was a brand new platform, a blend, and said we need to do something different. And they followed up Mad Men with then Breaking Bad, right? So all these new networks and television channels needed content that was new and that was innovative in order to get people to watch it. So you take a step back and say, all right, well, who was the writing team here? What are they doing that's new and innovative? Let's try it out. Let's see what works, right? If we think back, once again, we're about the same age. I remember television before Fox was on TV, and Fox was this, brand new network, et cetera, and they were willing to try anything. It was like, oh,
Simpsons, yeah,
The Simpsons. Well, what is this cartoon show going to be about,
sure,
right? So when
yeah.
you have these sort of innovations, at least in terms of newer channels and newer things, you're more willing to take risks, and that's the problem with studios. They're not willing to take risks, right? Um, and that's why we've seen films just become sort of stagnant.
So what type of data, let's say I'm on your app, I'm considering investing. What type of data will be provided to me on risk assessment of the type of content, the audience that it's designed for, the quality of the acting, the quality of the writing? I mean, if I'm assessing that, I mean, I'm sure there's certain people who can look deeper at that, just like the stock market, versus the average person who has some money that is interested in investing into the culture. What level of information will be provided to me to help me make an informed decision on potentially investing into this versus that?
Great question. And the outset, obviously, at the outset, we won't have tons of data because keep in mind, the majority of films that are coming onto the platform have yet to be made. But what I'd always tell people, just like with anything, if you're investing in a company, the thing you should always be doing is saying, who's the CEO of that company? Who is the leadership board? I want to know about them, not just the
Yeah, yeah.
product it is that they have, but I want to know about this leadership board and I want to understand their history. Same for filmmaking. Who is the production team behind this? Who is the director behind this? Do they have any success stories prior to this? What are other films by them that I might be able to watch? So separate the content itself and how good that might be, but separate it out from who is the leadership team behind it. Same way we invest in stocks. Like this may be a great idea for a company, but if you've got a leader that doesn't know what they're doing, right? That has terrible ideas, that has tanked businesses beforehand, probably shouldn't invest in that company.
Do you anticipate your program um, supplying preferential preference to certain filmmakers based off of previous results? Do you see this person's had this amount of success before, they've raised this amount of funding? One of the reasons why these social media apps want to remove the like thing, which is create some sort of, unconscious treatment or preferential. Is there going to be something like that for you? We're going to treat everybody equal, or is there going to be some sort of status built into what you guys do?
Yeah. Great question. We are regulated by the SEC and FINRA. Therefore, and FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, therefore, we cannot give preferential treatment to
Yeah.
any one film over
Yep.
another, right?
Okay.
Bounded by law, we cannot do that.
That makes sense. Now, let's say I'm on your app. Is there a minimum amount of money I can invest? And is there a minimal amount of return I can get back in my investment?
Great question. So the minimum investment is going to be determined by the person running the campaign. So
Okay.
just like on Robinhood, if you wanted to buy, there's a difference between the cost of buying a stock in Apple versus widgets, right? There's a difference. So it's the person who's running the campaign, how much money it is that they need, and what then will be the minimum investment is totally up to them. Now, what the return can be is also then up to the person running that campaign. They'll have two options. Well, really three options. The first is they can sell equity in their project, meaning I own this film. I'm going to give away 15% of it, uh, not give away, sell up to 15% of the equity in it. Or they can say, you know what? Option two, I'm keeping all this equity, but instead what I'm going to do is offer a rev gen split with any potential investor. So for the first dollar made, investors receive X percent of money, and that'll exist for 10 years, right? Or the third option could be a hybrid of the two, right? I'll give away a small percentage of the equity, and then it'll mostly be, rev gen splits. But it's fundamentally up to the person running the campaign to determine how to incentivize their investor community and what it is they're willing to sacrifice for the sake of funds. Is it rev gen? Is it equity, or a mix?
Makes sense. Is the person running the campaign, is it going to be somebody that works specifically for your business or somebody who works for the filmmaker in a sense? Like if we're just
Yeah.
talking about the filmmaker side of your app.
Yeah, great question. It's the filmmaker who makes all the decisions. We assist them in sort of putting it up. We assist them in structuring their campaign. We can assist them with the filing of their campaign with the SEC, because also that needs to happen. So we guide them along the way. Unlike a lot of other crowdfunding platforms, and I'm not here to speak negatively about them, we just don't allow someone within 30 seconds to create a campaign and say, go out here and go do that. There is a much more regimented process that takes place up front. We work hand in hand with that filmmaker to ensure that they have the best campaign possible for the audience it is that they're looking for.
What are the other things, and I've gotten much more into stock since 2020. I got very lucky to have a little bit of cash on hand in 2020.
Good for you.
And I put a lot of that money into a couple of kind of volatile stocks, and I was able to be pretty successful with that. Since then, I find myself to be a pretty good selector of individual stocks and businesses so far. I don't do too much of it. I'm not a gambler by any way, but I think it's important to invest into things that you like and know. So if I enjoyed films probably more than I did, I might be interested in investing into certain films or certain categories. It's just not something I find a lot of interest in. Now, one of the things that I've also done is not just select individual stocks, but I've also invested a good percentage of my money. I'd say half the money I've invested into some sort of mutual funds. Do you envision there being some sort of joint venture funds that like either one producer who is creating multiple films can have a mutual fund type of investment to where you're investing into the studio per se, not an individual film? Or can there be a subcategory of these people maybe like will join this comedy filmmaking group, and then you can invest into the genre of comedy, which would be something like a mutual fund type of investment instead of individual stock? Or is that not something you guys have considered yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've thought about it. We would, and once again, if my lawyer were here, he'd say, "Hold on, Sharif," but let's not jump the gun here. But what I would say is the way the LLCs are created for each film, it might be difficult to just have a bunch of producers and directors together in one sort of pool, right? That may create some potential complications. But the idea of one filmmaker and a bunch of their projects all falling under that one filmmaker and potentially that one LLC certainly seems easier to handle from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah.
This is sort of, my quick assessment.
Yeah, and
But it's
I think to your point, it would be I think that if a mutual fund style one is created, I think it would probably have to be done by an organization, a management group outside of your company, right? So that they're
yes,
carrying the risk and then you are just housing the funding, not providing the suggestions, right? Because I think that's
exactly
where you're probably going to run into the legality issues
right,
of making suggestions like I am saying maybe you should bundle these four filmmakers together. But if somebody else, a third party company, went and collected, maybe it's like I don't know exactly what they call it, but like the Sunrise Music Festival, like the award winners mutual fund,
hmm
like the people who won the awards is the Sunrise Mutual Fund. Of all the
yeah,
people who won the award, then are under that subcategory, and you can invest into that of something. I would imagine this is something you guys have really considered, which is I haven't done a lot of research. I'm just going straight off the top of my dome on this. Is if I had to project within 10 years, I don't think that I don't think the actors that we know today will even be relevant. I think that there's a big aspect that films will still be as relevant, but I think filmmakers will be AI people that just know how to prompt a really, really good, engaging film to where we're not necessarily even going to be using a Tom Cruise or, a Will Smith to create a movie. We're just going to be creating them through animated actors and animated versions of that. Do you anticipate that being the case? And if so, does it change anything under your model?
great question. There's a lot to ingest there. I think first off, it's already beginning to happen. If we take a look, actors are not as influential as they once were, in large part just because of influencers, right? So, like that right there has social media and the role that an influencer can play in terms of marketing, content, and an idea is so much greater than I think anyone would have imagined, right?
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, right? So when they talk about the golden era of Hollywood, that's absolutely in the past. As
Yeah.
far as your point about I think it's a very legitimate concern that a lot of actors have, right? With the integration of AI into filmmaking, it will make it so that it is going to lower the barrier for the cost of making a film. It's going to speed up the process of making a film. So what I expect is that for there to be a lot more content within the next 10 years that people are going to absolutely be able to pick and choose from. And the reality is that a lot of that content is going to be filtered to people dependent upon the influencers it is who they follow on social media, right? It's going to become a huge, like the gatekeeping is fundamentally going to change. It's going to
Of
become a
course.
huge component of it. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I can imagine at that point it'll become much easier to gauge who to fund on. Early stage funding would become much easier because you could just look at the tech stack that they're using to be able to determine that because it becomes less about I get Tom Cruise to be my head of the movie, or am I
Right.
some unknown actor who's not necessarily going to draw at the box office going in that? What were you going to say?
Yeah. It also goes to your point too. So for filmmakers, that was literally how some of them were only able to get their films greenlit was a big star saying, "Yes, I read the script. Yeah, let's go." And then the studio saying, "Okay, this person, Tom Cruise, is down. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go and make
But
that."
then that raise your price by 100x because now you got to
But
pay
then
Tom
and
Cruise's
then we have to
cost.
market it. Right, exactly. So the paradigm can shift with a platform like ours because instead a filmmaker can say, "Hey, big studios, I've already raised $2 to $3 million from equity crowdfunding. I already have a team of people behind me who are interested in seeing this film get made. It's gonna get made. I don't need you in order to make it. Either partner with me here on the proper distribution deal, or I will go somewhere else and find it." So that's when we talk about empowering filmmakers. That's a way that we can absolutely assist with that, right? So that people don't have to get on their hands and knees and beg an A-list celebrity to read their script and be in their movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the aspect of building the business side of it. So I get the idea of why the app is and why the audience is now, and I understand where you identified the problem and what you're solving for, which I think is one of the biggest issues. Now, one question I ask every founder: which is who is your ICP for this service? Who is the perfect person you want to put this crowdfunding service in front of? Like, do you have an audience?
Yeah. Well, when you say audit, let's be clear. Is this for the purpose of gaining exposure, or is this for the purpose of potentially making massive profits and selling the business
You
or
tell
something
me.
like
What do you want? I
that?
mean, so I'm not talking so I would assume their stage one is I have to get as many people on the app, investing in the app,
Correct.
and engaging with the app. And I would guess, and we are going to talk about that here in a second, but I would guess maybe a 5, 10, 15-year goal, maybe shorter, is that there maybe wants to be an acquisition play in a partnership or an investment side. And then that's maybe where we need to get the business to be. But first step, how do I get as many people? So who is my ICP and my approach to get as many people on my platform investing in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, account creation, you're absolutely correct. The number one thing that we're looking for in this early stages. So, who do we need to get it in front of? Tech enthusiasts, film enthusiasts, blockchain enthusiasts. Right? These are and investors, right? And when I say people, everyday investors, the people who are out on Robinhood, who are looking for new asset classes, right? This group of people who would have an interest in this, right? Um, are generally the people who at first, when I speak to them about it, they're like, wow, that's really interesting. Tell me more. Tell me more, right? So that first group of people. And then ultimately, like you said, further down the line, um, what I think we also, someone said this to me, they're like, man, you guys are basically an incubator for indie films. And I was like, that's a really interesting way to put it, right? Now, in this struggle for content, right? People want more and more content, right? If we take a look at something like the phenom Stranger Things, right? That recently completed its fifth year run. On top of having the TV show, there's behind the stuff, behind the scenes stuff. There's the stage play that's happening in New York. So people love to see this extra content, and that's where a platform like ours can absolutely serve, because you can literally watch that extra content being built right from the ground up in terms of trailers, in terms of little clips that a filmmaker can put up there to say, hey, here's that behind the scenes stuff, for investors. So absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned 4 different categories. One of them was blockchain. Why blockchain? Like, why was that number 3 of 4 on your list?
That's the block and CineBlock Films, right?
Okay.
So we are blockchain based, right? And the reason we use it was to solve one of the fundamental issues that has happened in the film and television genre over the past 100 years, right? Is the record keeping around films, around expenses, where money is going, has been very convoluted for the typical investor, actor, filmmaker, et cetera, et cetera. Part of the reason we use the blockchain is to say all these transactions can be recorded in a safe environment, that is not going to be changed, right? Irrefutable ledger is the term that they use for blockchain, right? So it's a fundamental piece of the technology it is that we use. I tell people you don't need to be a blockchain expert to get onto the site, right? It's not about that. But what it fundamentally does is it helps record all of the transactions. So when investor X over here says, "Hey, I invested, um, $2,000 into Matt's movie," I can now go to this blockchain and say, here it is. You can't refute this. It's signed right here. This is what I'm
Okay.
doing.
Do you so I'm not a believer in crypto. I believe it's a Ponzi scheme personally, okay? I believe that it is a category made by the rich to make the rich richer. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a value in doing exactly what you just mentioned from a utility perspective. I think that from an investment perspective is what I don't believe in it, for, just for clarity. Now, the fact that it is blockchain backed, are you concerned that some people would avoid it because they're not comfortable with understanding the blockchain? And why I say that is I'm not as much talking about the crowd younger than me, but the crowd younger than me doesn't necessarily have dispendable income to then invest into certain things. And the people who tend to have dispendable income are likely over the age of 35, I would guess. And those people might be a little bit more resistant to blockchain the higher up you go in age. I mean, what's your consideration for that?
Yeah, so that's definitely something to note, right? So myself and my co-founders, we're constantly having this discussion about how much do we emphasize the blockchain. I personally don't run from it, right? But I
Okay.
always have to be clear, we are not a crypto company, right?
Okay.
And the
Okay.
thing about blockchain is that we have to just remember crypto is just the most famous use case of the blockchain to date. It is not the entirety of the blockchain.
Okay.
And like people have to remember, like cloud computing is new to most people, but the cloud existed for 40 years before people started using it, right? It
Right.
wasn't until we had these cell phones and someone said, hey, the pictures that are on this phone, I need on this new phone when I get it. And I don't want to remotely have to understand how to do it. What's the best way to move my pictures? Oh, the cloud? Great. Now I'm a cloud expert. Like, no, you're not. That's just the use case that brought the cloud to prominence for a lot of people.
Yeah. Can on your app, I want to invest, let's say $10,000 into a film. Can I give a credit card information and then that convert into whatever the investment aspect is on the blockchain?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So then, yeah,
You
it's
see
not
that,
like
yeah,
it's not like
there's
you
no
have to give like, and I know that my ignorance has just been exposed there because to your point, you're saying the blockchain is what crypto is on, but it's not everything the blockchain is about, right? That's basically what
correct,
you just said.
correct.
So even though the crypto is on the blockchain, blockchain does more than just what is crypto. So that makes a lot of sense for me. Like I'm saying, if I had $10,000 in my bank, could I transfer it to your platform and then you convert that into an investment without me having any crypto?
Yeah, there's absolutely no crypto involved whatsoever. Absolutely.
Awesome. Now what so when we talk about going to those four audiences, a lot of what I do is business to business. What this is you're going to be doing is more B2C and it's more just direct, get as many users on. I assume it's an app, right? Is it an app?
It's a website. Yeah, it's a website where you can do the direct. We haven't made it a downloadable app just yet, but yeah, it's a website you can do that. But go
Cool.
ahead with your question.
So we want to get as many people on the website interacting with the website as possible. How do you imagine your number one way to get as many people knowing about who you are? Obviously, you're on this podcast. You've probably done a few more before. I assume there's some branding that goes. You already have a website. I assume there's social media that you're doing. What do you envision is going to be the number one key to quick success in the first 90 days to get as many people on as possible?
Yeah, great question. It also means picking the right projects, right? The projects that are, for lack of a better term, or to use a Hollywood term, sort of sexy, right? To get eyes onto the platform. It's also then about utilizing that filmmaker's existing community, right? And saying, and asking the questions like, all right, well, what's your existing fan base? So that's why I always say, like, we're so different from some of the other crowdfunding platforms because we sit and go through this entire exercise before we let anyone run any campaigns on our platform. Let's understand the size of your existing community because we're going to market this to a percentage of those people. Do we have our own investment team here that has, articulated interest in investing in films? Absolutely. Do we work with marketing partners who can then broadcast someone's campaign? Absolutely. But let's also understand your community because we're going to have to leverage them as well, right? So like that's a fundamental component. I'm big on LinkedIn, right? So I'm always writing like LinkedIn articles and I always see I always find it fascinating that there's famous actors, actresses, filmmakers all saying, oh, I want to make this type of movie, but I can't get the financing for it. I'm like, are you kidding me? You've got 20 million followers on your Instagram. All you need to do is for a percentage of those people that follow you on Instagram to donate a small amount of money, and within days, you'd have $5 million in your back pocket, which you can then take to the studio and then say, this is what's happened, right? So once again, empowering creatives, and that's one of the ways to do it. On top of the
Okay.
things that is mentioned.
So it would be having the creators help push the platform out from a branding perspective, having the people who have a following who ultimately would be interested in a funding pushing the conversation to the funding instead of or to the platform instead of the platform worrying about trying to get as many people there without I
It's a
assume you're going to
combined
do that
effort.
as well, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a combined effort on for both parties, right? We will do everything it is that we can on our end, but we also need you, filmmaker, to promote on your end as well. And let's come up with the proper strategy in order to do so. What is the social media platform you're most comfortable with? So let's understand then how you're going about building that base of followers and leverage it.
So I can imagine as the chief evangelist officer, one of your roles in sales is getting as many filmmakers, creators, people of influence in the space bought into this idea, right? That's the primary thing you need to do behind the scenes is if I can get yeah, I don't know, a Taylor Sheraton to crowdsource one of his new TV shows on my platform, then it's a win-win. Now I've got Taylor Sheridan pushing this. Now, is there outside of just receiving the funding, is there any other incentive for a creator of influence to then be on your platform? Is there any sponsorship that you would provide to a creator to sponsor the program outside of it, or just the benefit of being on it?
I think the benefit of being on it, once again, because we're regulated by the SEC and FINRA, there's fine lines. There's certain
Yeah.
things that we can and cannot do as a platform. But it's mostly about, hey, this is a way to engage your fans in a way that you've never been able to do possible. One of the things I always talk about is we're moving from stakeholders to shareholders. Everyone's a stakeholder in a movie, right? Everyone spends their time watching a movie. If a film is filmed in your community, you're a stakeholder in that community because there's certain streets you now can't drive down because they're doing shooting. So all of us are stakeholders in entertainment. But now we need to talk about making this transition from a stakeholder to a shareholder. And this is a way for celebrities, influencers to be able to engage their existing fan base, right? Like social media, Web 2.0 was huge in sort of giving platforms to people to say, now you have this whole base of people who now follow you, right? Who are keen in on understanding what it is you do on a daily basis. This Instagram is basically a diary for many people, right? So you've got all these followers and they're literally watching your diary. Awesome. Now, how can you leverage this community so that there's beneficial outcomes for both parties? Right. So you can make the content it is you want, and it's supported by the people who support you. And you can all then come together and market this content to have a film that is seen by X amount of people because your followers are already your backers, right? So from followers to funders.
What percentage of, and I know it's such a hard thing to answer right now, and I'm sure that the answer might change and be a moving target as you get to know more and maybe even your business evolves, but if you're projecting 5 years from now, what percentage of people that are giving, what percentage of the money that's given is given for is given for the primary purpose of making money back in exchange for this versus funding a passion of creation for somebody that they're a follower of?
Great question. And I don't know if we'll actually ever have the answer to that because what we've seen over the past, I don't know, 3 elections is you can't trust polls. People lie. Right. So at the end of the day, people lie. Right. And when you ask someone that question publicly, there's always will there be shame in my answer for saying I did
Yeah,
this for
yeah.
selfish reasons? I just wanted to see a return as opposed to, well, yeah, they made great content. I wanted to share with the world. But it really is something that we as an organization need to be able to understand.
Yeah,
Right.
because if
And
you
yeah,
understand that, it changes your the way you market it. I can imagine too, right?
absolutely. Right. And absolutely. So, I mean, as we grow, those are things that we are absolutely going to take a look into and then try and analyze and then see how we can make it better for everyone.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this, but if you were able to determine the answer of that question, to lean more towards you want people to be on there to do it for investment and making money per perspectives, or to just fund a passion, is there a preference you would prefer the audience to be have the intention of?
Great question. Like any business, your goal is how do we get repeat customers, right? Like it's one thing for somebody to do something once, but if you're looking at predictable revenue because you've got to keep the lights on, you've got to pay employees, there needs to be some level of predictability, right? So of those two, if I have to think about it, of those two, which is more consistent in terms of revenue? It's the person who wants the investment to see some level of return, right? That if someone sees that and says, "Hey, I invested $2,500 a year ago, and that $2,500 over the course of a year has now turned into $5,000, $6,000 with the plan with additional upside. I'm going to go back and do this again," right? That's the repeatable business model. That's a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, I agree with
I would
that.
guess. I could
And
guess.
what would you and I'm sure every project maybe has a different answer to this, but on the average project, what would the anticipation of of I fund, let's say if I come in right early, I fund, and then I'm able to see a recouping of my funds. Is a filming project 6 months, 12 months, 5 years? I mean, is there an average that we
Great
know of?
question. Great question. It depends on where the stage at which that filmmaker is at. So for our platform, we take on filmmakers who just may have a treatment or what's known in Hollywood circles as the Bible, right? Then there's going to be people who have completed scripts, right? And that's all they have. And they need this money to then get into pre-production. Pre-production and filming, that may take another year, right? Before then the movie's released, right? So at that stage, it may be a year to 18 months before someone's seeing return. But then we're also going to have people who have completed projects, right? Who are saying, I completed this 2 years ago. I am looking to sell some of the equity in this film and sell it right now. It can potentially become famous, and then be sold, picked up by a distributor like on, say, a Netflix. And if someone has done a rev gen model, every time that film is then viewed on Netflix, you'll see a percentage. So that timeline could be shrunk down to, say, 2 to 3 months, right? All
Yeah.
depends on the stage of where that filmmaker is with their project.
You mentioned there's basically in your vision there's three models of an investor. No, one would be equity, one would be rev gen, and the other one would be a joint aspect of equity and rev gen. Um, why is there not a fourth model of just give me money for my project without anything in return? And maybe there is, maybe that's just not was not broken down in the explanation.
The reason it's because that already exists. That's what Indiegogo, Kickstarter, Seed and Spark, they already do that. And that's
Okay,
their niche.
okay,
That's awesome for them, right? But we wanted to create a platform that gave fans something different.
okay. I just didn't know if you would find yourself having no reason why any creator would not be on your platform, seeing the amount of value that your platform can bring, and then using that funding side, the free funding side, to then add in the other stuff. So maybe they're a little hesitant on an equity model or a rev model, but they're at least willing to put it on the platform, and at least you can have those people on the platform, which then can help you drive marketing dollars in to say we've got a Taylor Sheridan on our platform for them to do that, and then that kind of
Yeah.
chicken before the egg type scenario.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there. There is some hesitancy. Not every filmmaker wants to be on our platform, right? Because the thing about our platform is you're gonna have to be accountable to these
Correct.
shareholders.
Yeah.
Make
Yeah.
no mistakes. So if you're out here just saying, "Oh, I want to raise money to make some BS film," blah 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 blah, this is not the platform for you because you're gonna have to be held. These people will hold you accountable. They're investing their money in you. Secondly, it's a lot more upfront work to do a campaign on our platform. You've got to file your LLC with the SEC and FINRA. There's a lot of upfront work that needs to be done. Whereas with other platforms, like I said, within 30, 40 minutes, you can get a campaign up and running and get a few dollars in there if you know people, right? So it's
Makes
all
sense.
about, it's all about what that filmmaker is really looking to do, right? Some people aren't yet ready for our platform. And I've had to tell people, based upon what it is you have already, you're not quite ready for this. I
Sure.
think you need another 6 to 8 months of doing, the work before jumping on here.
So I have two more questions. First question is, will there be a potential to offer extra access or extra um, things given for investors, as in early access, to your point, behind the scenes content that's exclusive to them? Like, you think of Like I'm a big podcast listener and digest that, and you hear a lot of these people that will have some content behind a paywall. That's a secondary thing that only when you have certain level of access you get access to it. Will there be a level of that to where if I am a person who is invested, I get different levels of access?
Yes, 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 and yes. It's one of the main things we speak about for filmmakers coming into our platform. It's all right, so you need X amount of money. How are you going to incentivize people to come? The equity, like that part is awesome. But like, have you thought about, because once again, equity crowdfunding campaigns can run up to a year. They generally reach their window in 90 days. So it's like, all right, for a successful campaign, you want to have X amount of people in the first 30 days. How are you going to incentivize people over the course of those first 30 days? Let's talk about exclusive stuff, right? So if the film opens up, how about letting them be extras in the movie if it's shooting in a certain location, right? How about, like you said, movie tickets right then and there? Let's think of all these incentives to get investors for your project. Absolutely.
And then you had slightly mentioned this, and maybe I even misheard you. I know the core aspect of what we do is filmmaking, for core aspect of what you do on there, but you mentioned something around like video games, other things. Are there extra iterations within what you guys do, or are you thinking of kind of making off sister projects that do the same thing, but for different industries, or is it will
Yeah,
all be under the one the
yeah,
one app?
so great question. So once again, we're about entertainment IP. And for most people, when you say entertainment, that means film and television. But gaming is becoming huge. And what we've seen now, especially with the emergence, you're big on television, is so many video games and maybe like even comic books now moving into the television and film genre because there's just been so much success because they have an existing fan base already. So, because of that, we said, well, then we should be able to open up this platform for anyone doing just that, right? So, if you want to do campaigns for comic books, for virtual reality, for gaming, for live events, to generate money for live events, we are a platform that can do that. It's just film and TV is just the first thing that sort of sticks, right? We didn't want to be too much for everyone at the start of it, right? But let's land on film and television because that's something most people can easily digest.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned in and I learned this the hard way, and so often I see people that are founders that make this mistake that you're not making, which is they try to be the expert of everything or try to be the average at everything instead of the expert at one. And so I think that your assessment of let's really, really figure out this side of the business, this side of filmmaking, and really understand that. And then when we understand that, if we still want to expand to other areas that are akin to what we've already specialized in, then great. But it doesn't necessarily mean to. Now, when you do make that move, do you envision it being under the same um, company, or will you just kind of create a separate company?
Oh, it'll be right under the same company,
Cool.
right? Yeah. So
Sharif,
we've got
I've enjoyed having this conversation with you, man. Like I said, I go into these conversations just hopefully you can hear just I'm a curious guy who has a ton of ideas, and I'm excited about what you guys are doing. Hopefully, there's a couple of projects that come across the table that I'm interested in. Maybe something of a comedy would be nice. That's a little risky, a little extra would be something I'd be interested in myself. But before we go, obviously, we're going to make sure all of your contact information, how to get in contact with you and your company, if you're interested in investing as an audience member. But before we go, what final words do you have for anybody who's listening?
for anybody that's listening, we now have created a new asset class for you to be able to invest in, and that is film and television IP. We are fundamentally looking at democratizing film finance so that communities and people can see the films it is that they want to see. That at our heart, that is who we are.
Awesome. Well, Sharif, I've enjoyed the time with you. I look forward to any way I can help you in this journey to obviously let me know. And for everybody who's watching, like, share, comment, jump into his program, invest a couple of dollars into some projects, and let's get this thing going. Sharif, until next time, man, see you soon.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a
All right.
pleasure.
You too. Bye.